Short game chipping, undoubtedly my favourite part of the game. Reasons why? Well, I quite enjoy practicing it. I find it quite meditational, but also the different types of shots that you can create if executed properly. I think we tend to take a lot of references from the long game, from the mid game, from the iron game especially, where we're always looking to compress a golf ball, and when we do that, hands are generally always in front of the club head. Now with chipping it's very different. We can change the grip slightly depending on whether or not we want to utilise the full loft of the club on the way through the shot, or we can change the stance, we can change the ball position, and actually how the body ends up reacting to essentially the shot that we want to play. So we make a more positive move by utilising the body to help us rotate, as opposed to very much an arms hands led scenario. If you take reference from someone like Daniel Grieve, so Daniel's been influential in the short game, everyone's seen his stuff, so actually it's quite a good reference point where you can go and look at his stuff. You can't get a lesson with him because he's 2 years booked up. You could probably get an online lesson with him, but let's take some influence from that. So he does a release 1, 2 and 3. So the release 1 is your stock chip shot. So we've got stock chip shot number 1. Let's look at that first off. So your stock number 1 is, there's a few things we need to work out first of all, which are imperative. Setup. So we're going to be utilising the bounce, what we call the bounce of the club, which is the sole, the bottom of the golf club. So obviously we have to be able to slide that underneath the ball, and we need to make contact with the ground. We don't want to be making contact with the ground in a heavy descending manner. We also don't want to be exposing the leading edge too much. So how's best to utilise that or access that bounce of the club? Setup wise, standing square, so square to the target, not laid off, opened up, or certainly not closed. Weight on the lead side, so about 60% on the lead side, and we're going to just a little bit more forward into the ball than we would do normally for a regular iron shot. So regular iron shot maybe here. Now for a chip shot, we're just going to stand up a little bit taller. The handle's going to be a little bit more forward. And we're going to utilise more mid towards the toe of the bounce. The reason being there's more bounce there towards the toe, so it's there easier to slide the club underneath the ball than it is anywhere else in the club. So we get to that position, and actually we want to be really engaging the torso. So that works together. You can notice how my body opens up, everything's connected, there's no disconnect. And you'll hear Grieve talk about the triceps connected to the rib cage. Again, important, because then we're creating a positive move of the body. So as long as they don't leave the torso, especially as we go through and there's a disconnect, we can then, by simply turning, utilise the static position of the club. So it's static bounce loft position. So this is a 60 degree, and I'd play a chip and run with a 60 degree all day long. You're probably thinking, well, why wouldn't you just use a 7 iron? Or with a 7 iron it will bounce off the face, but you won't get much face control. With this I can look after the loft based on the way I take it back in the ball position, but also create more control from the face of the golf club, which is really important. So we've got here, you'll be able to listen to the different types of strikes and the control that we get. So off the back foot, the handle's pressed forward about 5 degrees. I'm simply going to turn and then turn through, and the triceps are not going to disconnect from the rib cage. You can just hear that strike, just slightly ground first, just slid underneath really nicely. Let's just do another one, standing up nice and close to it. Again, you can just hear that really nice soft strike. Now moving on to release 2. So release 2 is, again, if you're floating one back to the back corner of the green, or you might be slightly short-sided, you might have a bunker in front of you, then the green, and there's not a lot of green to work with, so you need to lob something up. It might be a 30-yard shot, 20-yard shot, that type of thing. Or again, maybe a little bit closer, but it's something you have to use height. So this chip and run wouldn't work because there wouldn't be enough green to work with. So what do we need to do? We need to utilise the natural loft of the club. And how do we do that? We need to keep that loft open throughout the shot. If we went back to our stock shot number 1, we are essentially de-lofting the club on the way back It's almost like a hooding effect type thing. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to weaken the grip slightly. So we're going to strengthen the left hand, weaken the right. That then allows us to open the club face naturally. So you see there, it's thumbs up, toe to the sky. So as we take the club back, it naturally wants to fold back, toe towards the sky. Now, as we do that, the loft is maintained, well, it's maintained its loft on the way through on the backswing, and we don't lose it. What we're then trying to do is to make sure the butt of this club returns back to the belt buckle, towards the left hip, and certainly not here. It's once we get into that position, we get ourselves in trouble. So slightly further back, slightly further apart stance, ball slightly further forward. Now, I've got my club face open slightly. I'm leading a little bit with the heel. I'm just going to take a slight wrist hinge. Again, as I said, toe to the sky, and work that underneath and just turn. Again, turn those triceps connected to the torso. You can tell that was just, obviously hit the fence. You can tell that was just a really nice high lobby shot. I've got a 9-foot net there that went straight over the top from 10, 11 feet. So it's just a really nice, soft way to approach that just short, slightly short-sided chip shot. Again, that's a much softer version. You really let the hands, the weight of the club work down away from you. What I mean by that is the weight of this club, the head's got to work this way, not this way. So if we start to pull the club, then we get ourselves into trouble. Then we start to dig the handle, dig the leading edge into the ground. So, release number 3. Again, high risk shot. However, you could be on a downhill lie or the top of an upslope, looking down onto the green. Not a lot of green to work with. You're thinking, well, even if I hit it softly into the downslope, it's going to roll off the other side of the green. So I'm just going to lob one up and bring it down in a really vertical way, a really sharp angle to get it to stop. So how do we do that? Similar to setup number 2, however, further back, handle lower. Sevi was big for this. You notice now I'm leading with the heel. So the club is flat to the floor. Then you're going to re-grip it. So, strong left hand, weak right hand. That keeps the club face open throughout the swing. The hands are only going to move. You notice I'm pushed into my left side, and I'm going to stay on that left side there. The hands are really only going to move from here to here. So right thigh to left thigh. They're not going to move an awful lot. Now what's imperative here, as we come down, we're bringing the handle back towards the belt buckle, and then we're going to turn, and as we turn, we fit the club back into the holster, essentially. That's what's going to happen. Now this will probably fly over my fence, but I'm willing to do it for the sake of this. And that's a really high lobby shot, high risk, big reward, but you would only use that in certain circumstances. Again, it's totally worth playing with. You'll notice that my grip pressure was really, really light in all those shots as well. So once you start creating tension in the swing, you become a little bit more prone to get flippy. So above all else, it's the 3 different setups. And then we've got the way the wrists are used. So as we work through the 3 different types of shots, the wrists come into play a little bit more. Then we've got the ball position, handle working slightly away from us as we go into that more lobby shot using the back of the club with the heel first. But once you get practicing with that and you look at the height of the shots and the reaction you get from the club face, you can use a 60 or 56 for every single one of those.